All right, well today we are going to talk about dollars and cents as it relates to a home building or a renovation project. So, you know, it's always really fun to talk about design and all that fun stuff, but at some point we need to talk about how much is it going to cost and the whole money aspect. So that's what we're going to focus on today. What exactly is the difference between those three? Budget, estimate, and quote.
For me, I look at these as just being tools. And for me, when I talk about budget is an amount of money that you can use to have a conversation about something. So I want to do something, what kind of budget might that fall within? And for our process, how I use an estimate, we use an estimate once we have something to measure off of. So we've got plans, we've got something that can be measured. So we then switch to this idea that an estimate is something that you derive from measurements taken. And then lastly, a quotation. We tend to tie quotation as about something that would relate to a contractual obligation. I will do something measured, something that we can set out, and I will be willing to be responsible to that. So for us, that's how we sort of set budget. Let's have a conversation, let's figure out what we can do. Estimate, we've got things to measure so that we can take a budget and refine that and tell you how much something might cost. And then a quotation, tying it with a contractual obligation.
Let's maybe shift the focus over to the process. So as a homeowner, let's just say one of the lovely homeowners sitting in the crowd today, if I was thinking about a project, what is the process that I would do initially in order to get that number and answer the question, how much is my project going to cost?
We tend to focus in the beginning where you've got maybe ideas and you're like, I want to do something, I'm not sure what I can do. So how we structure it, and of course these names will be specific to us, we call it a concept creation phase. So let's talk together about some kind of a budget range, and it's hard to use one number, so you want to try and spread that over. And we don't talk necessarily about what it will cost, we talk what it could cost, and we determine the first and foremost thing is a zoning analysis. What do you want to do? How would that fit? What kind of project is this? What's it going to look like? We produce some drawings that allow you to ground that discussion with something that you can see and understand. So it's like, okay, I can do this, it'll kind of look like this, and it might cost somewhere between here and here. And the intention of that step is to allow you to be in a position to say, do I want to further develop this with all the necessary consultants and things that'll come in when you go into an architectural phase getting your permit. And so for us, that would be a starting point. Get you to a position where you can say, do I want to go for launch or do I want to hold off and redesign so I can try and get something that's going to be more suitable for what I'm aiming for. Again, you know, tying that back to estimates and cost and narrowing it down, the more you develop something and a mutual understanding between the person who's trying to help you and what you want, the more you can actually narrow a budget range to a budget number. I say budget, it might be an estimate if we've got drawings. You know, that would be how, let's call that a first step, right?
What is important and what is not, and with experts around the table helping you to prioritize.
Yeah, that was a word that I was coming in with, because you can end up with a big laundry list of things that you'd like to have, and when you ground that against what that costs, then you start having to say, well, what kind of a compromise might I be looking at? And that's why I think design is so important, where the compromise that you might choose to do gets grounded against what it's going to look like, so you can at least understand what kind of compromise that'll be.
Absolutely. Yeah, so great tips about how to get started, how to start your project, generally speaking. Let's shift gears into contracts. So fast forward, let's just say we have a design now, we know how much everything costs. Contracts can be, again, very intimidating, and there's so many different kinds and styles of contracts out there. So what are some key points that as a homeowner, what should a homeowner be looking at when it comes to contracts?
Tools, again, tools in the toolbox. And I think when you talk about the structure, right, we're talking about a contract structure. How are we going to agree to do business together? And each of those structures services, let's say, a preference of a client. And so we can talk about a fixed price. Someone who would like a fixed price contract, maybe they value some cost certainty. Maybe they want to stretch to get what they want, and they want to know that if they stretch, they're not going to be put in an uncomfortable position where the budget is going to be growing, so that we can be contractually bound to a mutually understood set scope. And they're not as concerned with, well, how did you get that price? What is the granular breakdown of how that lump sum was created? Now on the flip side, many people have an appreciation of what's going to cost what it costs. How did you get that price? And let's put the focus on that is transparency. I want to understand how my cost is formatted. And what Cost Plus can do is it can allow you to work in granular budgets. It can allow you to see, okay, I've got this much money for this material, I've got this much money for labor, I've got this much money for here. Here's the money that's for me to operate as a business and be around to service warranty needs in the future, to take your call should something go wrong and we have to address it. And so that transparency then, the Cost Plus format is a tool to service someone who is predisposed to liking that more than other reasons.